Hi guys, welcome back to our other top 4 game. Apparently I am here as a Lowland Benji now, due to my shirt. I'm here with the wonderful Lydia on back as well. We are about to see our man Tord Reklev in action once again against our second Miloslav in top 8. Not something you see too often, but
really.
we've got a Zoroark mirror match. Both the lists look fairly similar, one or two changes between the two, but nothing that really gives either player the edge. It's all going to come down to just good play here and solid strategy.
And good draws. So apparently both players are ready to start, so we will kick right into the match.
Yeah, let's swipe right over. We can see both players shuffling up their decks. The coin flip I think has already been decided, but we didn't see it. No prizes put down yet either. I'm not sure who's going first, but how important is going first in this game, Lydia? Obviously,
I think it's very important as they play a very similar list, and having the first energy attachment, being the first one to evolve is just a huge advantage.
Yeah, of course, that's what you'd expect, really, isn't it? You want to get those draws going as quickly as possible with trade. You want to start getting the advantage over your opponent, getting the cards first, so you can be the person to actually do the movement, and then your opponent has to react to that, drawing the exact cards they need to respond. We do see a Wimpod in Tord's first hand, and
yeah, it's a good starting Pokemon as it has the ability to retreat without paying any retreat costs if it is your first turn.
Yeah, and looking over at Miloslav's, he has got a basic Pokemon. There is a Wimpod there. It just depends on what he's decided to opt to go for. Maybe a second Wimpod, or maybe he's got another strategy in mind here.
Yeah, he
can't actually pick that back up if he went to just then, but...
Well, I think Tord's cool. Oh yeah, Miloslav forgot about the prize come first, but Tord is remembering him.
So,
good guy, Tord.
There we go. So here we have something that could be quite important in the mirror match prize on Miloslav's side of things.
Miloslav, by the way, is playing against Turbo Tord. So, yeah, he's not quite Turbo Tord yet, but as he went to timeout earlier, well, he could play faster this round.
Yeah, obviously, going back into the prizes, we have the Max Potion prized on Miloslav's side of the board. Obviously, in this matchup, everything again is going to revolve around those two-shot knockouts. That Max Potion could really come in handy there, along with the Ace of Rollers, to keep Miloslav in this game and stop Tord from taking a two-shot knockout. As well as that, he has got a Parallel City in there, a tech card that has been put in for the mirror match. That could also become very, very useful if he did have it, as well as a Guzma being in there. Going over to Tord's side of the field, we see a Golisopod, a DCE, and a Tapu Lele over there. Not as bad of prizes, but that Golisopod could become quite important when that crossing cut attack needs to be used.
Yeah, I just checked the deck list because Stefan told us in his interview that he would rather, well, that he sees his matchup against Miloslav a little bit more trickier as Miloslav is playing the Sudowoodo. But looking at his deck list, I think he either thought of someone else's deck or someone with another name, but there is no Sudowoodo in the deck list, so yeah.
Well, I'm sure he'll be happy to hear that. Both matchups will be absolutely fine for him then, by the sounds of it. Seems very confident with his metal archetype going into this. We were talking to him after the interview. He seems to be very, very confident in his matchup. Seems to think that he's able to get around Zoroark, so should be an interesting final there.
It should.
However, Tord goes for his regular Bridget play, no surprise there at all, grabbing those two Zoroark and a Tapu Koko. That Tapu Koko is going to be very important in this matchup, allowing for first impression to be activated as often as possible with the Guzma loop.
Yep. And yeah, we see him benching to Zoroark and the Tapu Koko as he grabbed that from Bridget. And he's probably going to retreat into the Tapu Koko and pass.
Most probably, unless he's got anything else to do. Perhaps attaching a Grass Energy here.
Yeah.
Like that. But reading my mind there, Tord. But after that, I'm sure he'll be passing turn. No more supporters to play. And hopefully next turn he'll be hoping to evolve into those Zoroark and get those trades going.
Yeah, true. And we see an Ultra Ball coming down from Miloslav. Yeah, Tor was just pointing out like, ha, you have to play Ultra Ball for Tapu Lele to get that Bridget. I just got it out of my hand.
That's Tord for you. Always one-upping no matter what you do. But I imagine even with the Tapu Lele, we're going to see a very similar turn here on Miloslav's side of the board.
It's quite hard to see that he had to discard a Guzma. It's no card that you really want to discard, but it shouldn't be too bad. Looking at the price cards of both players have a double colorless energy prize. Miloslav has 1 max potion in his price cards, a Parallel City, a Guzma, an Ultra Ball, double colorless energy, and I can't really see what the last one is.
A Field Blower on both sides of prize.
Yeah.
And it looks like, shock horror, we're going to see the exact same Bridget on Miloslav's side of the board.
No
2 Zora
way.
and a Tapu Koko. That's a shocker. However, although Tord did get a Bridget to hand, Miloslav does have the opportunity to have a 3rd Zoroark on his second turn.
Yes, he does, as he had one in his opening hand. We see the Bridget, and we see...
And yeah, it did look like to be those 3. Once again, if he does have the Grass Energy in hand, he'll want to be placing that down onto the Wimp Pod, and obviously wimping out this turn, obviously getting that Tapu Koko up in the active. This matchup will very much revolve around those plays, using Tapu Koko almost as a pivot off of Guzma to allow that pretty much free retreat option without having to have a float stone or anything attached. Both players will be looking to make very similar plays, but then throw in some mixes of things to try and combat the person's resources and combat their draws in order to sort of outplay them and hope that they can't draw into anything to react to the players. Obviously, Tord is the creator and the designer of this deck. I'm sure that he knows that this matchup inside and out. So we might see some interesting things here, but obviously Miloslav could be watching from the outside and have watched Tord play this matchup several times and learn it inside out himself. So therefore, Miloslav could also have some tricks up his sleeve here as well.
That's true, but I think in the end it really comes down to who has the Oycerolas in the right time, who has access to max potions and puzzles and Guzmas, who can switch in their Golisopod better. So it's also really up to drawing the cards you need.
Miloslav just pointing at Tord's side of the board, just saying that we might as well have a mirror down the middle here. Exactly the same board here, apart from Tord's a turn ahead evolving, but I'm sure Miloslav's will look almost identical in his next turn, hoping to evolve into Zoroark and Golisopod as well. But Tord grabs the Tapu Lele, obviously going for that Cynthia there. This deck really doesn't rely on Professor Sycamore for its highest amount of draw. You don't want those cards in the discard unless you really want to be getting rid of anything. Tord's list doesn't play one at all by the looks of things. Opting not to go for the Sycamore, lots of Cynthias, lots of ends, because as we keep saying, this deck really revolves around 2-shot knockouts, so those ends still stay effective a long way through the game, and obviously ending yourself to a low hand size anyway doesn't matter that much, with Zoroark able to get that back up for you.
Yeah, and I feel like you don't really want to play the Sycamore because you already need to discard cards for trading, so yeah.
Yeah, obviously, Sycamore becoming almost irrelevant in this deck, with trade being even more powerful than it itself, and the parallel does come down, and that's going to hurt Miloslav on his turn. Laughing there, just saying that it's unfair that Tord wants to use that and not let him get all the same stuff. But moving that Zoroark into the active, able to get a knockout here on Miloslav's Tapu Koko, and now his board looks a lot more slacking than Tord's. Only 3 Zoroark. Hopefully he's able to get all 3 of them into Zoroark to be able to have perhaps more draw power than Tord to get himself back into this game. But if he doesn't, then he could be in trouble here, as that Golisopod is there and it's ready to take some knockouts on any Zoroark next turn as well, especially with that enhanced hammer. It's quite important that Tord moves that Golisopod into the active next turn to start getting knockouts.
It is, and we see a Wimpod on the bench and an N being played.
And Enhanced Hammer is another one of those cards in this matchup where, if played at the right time, you could really cut your opponent out of what they want to do. The difference here is that...
Miloslav is playing 2 Enhanced Hammer.
And Tord only the one. So that could be another upper hand that Miloslav has here. Obviously, being able to discard Tord's DCEs more often, meaning that Tord might be more reliant on getting those back with his puzzles, giving him less options and less combo pieces with those puzzle at times. Whereas Miloslav, with only the one enhanced hammer, he might only fall victim to that one time, allowing him to go into his discard pile with those puzzles at times and grabbing more pieces to actually move him forward in the game.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. We see Miloslav using trade. He is one of those players who likes to tap the card to show that he used the ability. We see Tord using a die for that in the last rounds.
It's all a debate here on whether he gets another Zoroark out. He really wants to do that. It's the only way I can see him catching up in this game now, to be honest with you. Having more draw power than Tord is quite important. And he just attacks, unfortunately. Still quite a fair bit behind here, even with that enhanced hammer. Tord with an Ultra Ball in hand as well. He is able to get access to another Zoroark this turn if he wants to. We could see him start to pull ahead here quite early.
Yeah.
And he trades away the N.
He pointed at the Parallel City at some point, but I'm not so sure why that is.
Gets the Acerola off the N. The Acerola might be a good play here.
Huge.
Taking away that
taking away the damage.
Damage off that Zoroark.
Directly evolve it again and then use another trade.
And the Ultra Ball is also in hand, so we could as well still have two Zoroark this turn while resetting the damage on his board state. This could be another big swing turn for Tord.
Absolutely.
And he does discard a Choice Band, and I think a Field Blow is the bottom card there with that green background. Not 100% sure, but we do see the second Zoroark come down. It'll be interesting to see whether Tord goes for the Acerola next turn, because it doesn't look like Miloslav will actually be able to knock it out on his next turn either without the Field Blower. So it all's dependent on whether Tord has a supporter that's more suited for this turn, that he wishes to play that, or if he just does go for the Acerola this turn. However, either way, it's going to set Miloslav back a lot. It just depends on whether he wants to lead Miloslav into thinking that he can get more damage off this turn, no problem. But will he allow him to take the risk and obviously perhaps hit the Field Blower to get rid of that Parallel City and actually do the maximum damage?
Just to make sure to have all your options available before you play your supporter card. And we see Guzma.
See the Guzma for the Golisopod. That first impression, as we said, is going to start coming in and taking prizes early on. That's what's going to give Tord the upper hand in this matchup so far. Having that Golisopod active and access to at least 120 damage when that comes into the active. Another Zoroark down, which means Miloslav only now has access to a possible 2 Zoroark this turn. Only be able to get an extra 4 cards already behind. And
this is where you can also see how much being the first player matters. Tord was able to evolve his Pokemon one round further. He was able to bring the first Parallel City in play and limit Miloslav's bench size, and he also managed to have the very first impression.
Yeah, obviously, like first in, but the very first. Oh, I just noticed what you said.
I was elaborating that for a long time.
How long have you been waiting to use that one through this whole tournament? Ran one yesterday, you came up with that, and you've been waiting this whole time to use it. We do see the Ultra Ball, however, coming down on Miloslav's side of the field. That Parallel being discarded. Obviously, he's not able to use that at this current moment because Tord's already got one in play. Even if he was to play it in the opposite direction, it just doesn't work, unfortunately. So he does grab that Zoroark, which he definitely needs this turn. He's already traded once. What he really wants here is either a DCE or a Golisopod to start applying some pressure back on the damage. However, we do know Tord has that Acerola waiting in hand. So no matter what Miloslav does this turn, it's most probably going to be nullified by what Tord has in his hand.
It is, and if Miloslav can't keep up with the pace Tord is having at the very moment, this is not going to look good for him.
No, I really don't think there's many ways that he can begin to move back into this game. Obviously, taking a knockout on this Zoroark gives him and Tord the same amount of draw power. Tord is slightly ahead and has a better board state. However, limiting the amount that Tord is able to trade slows him down a slight amount. I think that was pretty good from Miloslav. Obviously not exactly how he wants the game to go so far, but hopefully slowing down Tord a little bit, allowing him maybe 1 or 2 turns just to ease himself back into the game. He's not used any of his Acerolas yet. Perhaps getting down a Zoroark next turn might really help him in this matchup, being able to start doing a little bit of an Acerola loop, stalling himself out, and perhaps letting himself get back into this game. But right now, especially with that trade again from Tord, discarding Tapu Leles, he knows he's far ahead now.
Yeah.
He knows he doesn't need access to these things. His board state's looking good. He's pulling ahead.
Yeah, and he also maybe wants to keep up 1 bench slot, maybe for a Wimpod, so if he Acerolas the Golisopod later in this game, he can directly evolve the Wimpod, waiting on the bench to grow into a Golisopod.
Yeah, that's definitely always a really good play with these decks. A really cool mechanic that was introduced as well by Acerola. It's one of my favorite plays in the game, to be honest with you. Just looping that back and forth and being able to evolve straight away with one of them on your bench.
It's super cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And we do see the max potion come down on the Zoroark.
Wow.
Not even having to use the Acerola, which means Tord now has access to another supporter this turn.
And Miloslav does not look happy at all.
Perhaps we'll see the Guzma here for the Wimpod completely taking out Miloslav's. Yeah, that's exactly what.
It's your boy.
It's definitely your boy Guzma here. And we'll 100% see the knockout. I would imagine we're going to see the first impression here move in. I don't think the Zoroark on the bench has a DC on it, only a grass energy by the looks of things.
Yeah, it only has a grass energy, but first impression for 120 is definitely enough to deal with that.
Oh, actually, it's come down to the DC as well. We're going to see an armor press here, most probably. 100 damage, and also that Golisopod takes 20 damage less next turn. That means that even with a full bench, that Zoroark would only be doing 100 damage, meaning that it couldn't even two-shot a Golisopod. However, Miloslav's bench is definitely not full, nor will it ever get full with that Parallel City down.
He needs a field blower.
And we see the N. Probably the best option here for Miloslav. As much as Tord does have access to trade, always lowering your opponent's hand size with N is really important. N's one of those cards that can be used both in a defensive and offensive way. You can use it to obviously disrupt your opponent and punish them for pulling ahead too quickly, as well as giving yourself a new hand of cards.
Yeah, N is definitely one of the, well, a very strong card. It's been around for ages now. When I started playing, N was a staple already. It just came out, and yeah, ever since then it stayed in the format.
I mean, a card that definitely deserves a place in most decks, right? I think it's going to be...
Yeah, it rotated for like 2 months, 1 month, but then it came back.
And Miloslav's stuck for options here. As I said, playing down that Zoroark is probably his only real chance at getting himself back into this game, allowing him now to make a few of those Acerola plays, hopefully slowing down Tord a little bit, but he's just miles ahead here. He is steaming ahead here. I think he might just be a little bit too far ahead now for there to be a huge comeback. Down to 3 prizes as well. That Zoroark obviously quite vulnerable on the bench as well. Tord still access to 4 puzzles to regain that Guzma out of the discard pile as well. I don't think there's much hope for Miloslav here unless he comes up with some sort of play to perhaps lock up Tord in a way of an N, and perhaps even a Parallel City he'd probably just discard his Lele, 2 Zoroark and Tapu Koko's. Not a bad bench state.
Yeah, but still, it's a lot to ask for.
I just don't see any way for Miloslav to start to claw this back. He would have to hit pretty much an Acerola every turn from now on in order to keep this going. Acerola, Puzzler time, Acerola, and just sort of start running Tord out of resources. However, we do know that Tord does play that Oranguru, so even if Tord did start to run out of resources from those Acerola players, we know that he can get them back quite easily with that Oranguru.
And we see Tord considering to play a Tapu Lele or not. He played it, and he's using the Wonder Attack ability.
I think we'll see that Guzma again. Yeah, Tord knows. Tord is smart enough to know that the only way that Miloslav, as we keep saying, is able to get himself back into this game is continue on the prize denial and keep looping back and forth that Zoroark and Zoroark with the Acerolas, And now he knows that it's scoop. Miloslav, no, there's no other way for him to get back into the game apart from those Ace Roller loots. By Guzmaing that out and knocking it out, there was just no hope from there. There was no way for him to get back into the game. And Tord just pulled way too far ahead there. As we said, going first in that matchup, very important. And it really paid off there from Tord. Pulling ahead, getting those evolutions and getting that early Guzma.
Yeah.
And the Parallel City really stuck there as well.
It was excellent played from Tord here. And as always, there's a reason why he won 3 consecutive internationals.
Exactly. Absolutely fantastic player. You saw that he knew just how effective that Parallel City would be, especially being a turn ahead of Miloslav. He was able to set up his own board, get everything he needed, and then said, actually though, dude, we're going to stop you from doing the same thing, especially after Miloslav joked that he was pretty much going to do the exact same thing on his next turn, and Tord said, actually, I think we'll stop that right here.
No.
Yeah, I think we'll stop that right here. I'm going to now get everything I want, I'm going to sell you short, and you're going to have to try and find a way around it, unfortunately. And in Miloslav's case, he tried everything he did. I think he made all the right plays there to try and get himself back in the game, but unfortunately, Tord just had all the answers.
Well, it will be interesting to see how Miloslav is now going to adapt his strategy to what he just saw, what happened. Miloslav is now going first, so he may be going in there a little bit more aggressively to maybe get that Parallel City, as he just experienced how much it hurt him.
Yeah, we said right at the start that Parallel City's in there specifically for this. It started off as a counter to Zoroark, obviously very useful in other matches, but it really hurt Zoroark. You need those trades on your bench in order to keep that consistency high. So hopefully Miloslav will be hoping to pull off exactly the same thing realistically, set up his board, slow down Tord, even if it doesn't stick as long as it just did in the last game. He'll be hoping to slow him down for 1 or 2 turns just to pull a little bit ahead, because with a player like Tord, you really need something like that to give you the upper hand.
That's so true. Yeah, both players are shuffling still, but oh yeah, both players are shuffling.
Still here. So both players shuffling. As we said, Miloslav going first here. He's going to be hoping for that same Tapu Koko or Wimpod start, getting that Bridget down as early as possible as well, moving himself forward, and hopefully just getting those evolutions on his turn 2, giving Tord's deck a good shuffle. He's saying, I don't want you top decking those Gizmos again. Forget all that. I'm here and I want to take this round. And hopefully we do have a more exciting game this game. Obviously with both players getting more involved and it lasting a little bit longer. We've got a full 40 minutes still left, so we could still see this go to a game 3. And let's see what happens.
Yeah, Miloslav is now challenged by Pokemon Trader Tord. And let's see how Trader Tord is going into that matchup compared to Turbo Tord.
And we see here already a slight advantage on Miloslav's side. Tord is mulligan, giving him an extra card in hand, perhaps that being an extra Zoroark, the Parallel City he needs. However, his prizes are looking pretty daunting. A Tapu Lele, perhaps even a second Tapu Lele there with that rainbow art. I didn't see a rainbow on his field last time.
Oh no, it's a Zoroark GX.
Oh, it's a Zoroark. Okay, not too much of a worry then. He's still got access to 3 more, and hopefully he'll draw into that in the late game. But Miloslav's prize, he's got 1 puzzle in there as well. That could be quite bad, especially if he draws his prizes from the right-hand side. He's not going to draw that till later on in the game. He looks fairly happy with his start, though. He put it down quite quickly. He either didn't have a choice, or it was a fairly obvious choice for him to make.
Maybe, but we'll have to see.
And let's see if Tord does actually start with a basic in hand this time. He does. He hits the Wimpod. He's going to be happy with that. I think as well, I can see the Tapu Lele in hand, so he's going to be going for that Bridget as well on turn 1. And on his side, we see the Oranguru in there, and a puzzle as well. So actually that puzzle now becomes less of a worry, because both players are set back the same amount. There's no advantage that Tord is going to gain, and Miloslav just has to attach the DCE to Lele and Cynthia. Not much going on in his hand there at all.
Yeah, as you mentioned before, he probably had no other choice.
Not good at all, especially not what you want to see. Obviously 1 game down in the first game. You have a chance to obviously claw that back and try and win the series 2-1 if it does end up going badly for you. But Miloslav already 1 game down to Tord, and a poor start like that could not be too good for him.
Yeah.
Especially Tord hitting exactly what he needs off of his first hand. A Wimpod, a Zoroark, and I think I did see the Tapu Lele in there, meaning that Tord is going to be able to get off that Bridget.
I think so too.
And let's just hope that Miloslav didn't need the Bridget, and he does draw into some basic Pokemon here, so we can actually get them down on his bench.
So let's have a look at his hand cards.
I think we see Wimpod there.
Yeah,
we see
maybe
two basic
Wimpod
Pokemon.
Yeah.
It's not the worst. He's got to be happy about the fact that he did draw some Pokemon. Hopefully he was also able to hit a supporter card for his next turn. That could be quite worrying if not. But he did draw at least 2. He's able to get 1 Zoroark up next turn to start that trade ability going. But again, Tord's just going to be really far ahead if he does actually have that Lele in hand we suggested.
Yeah, he has a Zoroark GX in hand, and it looks like he is considering whether he should keep his hand or maybe play a supporter card like N or Cynthia.
Yeah, his hand could be quite strong for next turn. Obviously, he's got the DCE in there as well. He's got a Guzma. Could be an opportunity here for Tord. If his hand is quite dead and he doesn't really have a supporter, it could be quite a good play here to Guzma at the Wimpod.
Yeah.
He does everything I say right as I say it. Guzma at the Wimpod.
Maybe you should speak a little bit more quiet.
Not quiet.
Yeah.
He's probably overhearing me. Definitely. He's Guzma at that Wimpod. It doesn't actually have access to the Wimp Out ability.
Yeah.
Now it's not the first turn anymore, which means that it's actually stuck there with a 3 retreat cost, and if it does evolve into Golisopod this turn, only doing 30 damage.
Yeah, that is true. And if Tord managed to evolve his Zoroark, attach the double colorless energy, and find 2 more bench Pokemon, that would also be a knockout on the Wimpod.
Of course, Miloslav now having to find even more cards, is finally getting the Bridget. He's going to have to find more resources now, though, to get that Wimpod out of the active. The first impression attack is not going to be doing very much while it's still there.
Yeah.
He's going to opt to go for Bridget. He's probably going to go for that regular 2 Zoroark and probably a Tapu Koko here. So he is actually able to get a free retreater in the active.
Yeah. Also, Guzmaing the Wimpod denies Miloslav the possibility of having a good first impression because as Wimpod, as Golisopod would not have been on the bench before, it would only deal 30 damage for first impression.
Yeah, I think especially with Tord's Wimpod being back there with a grass energy already on it as well, he's ready and set up to go with his first impression. Again, taking advantage. Miloslav opted not to get the Tapu Koko, perhaps because his bench is almost full, leaving that spot open for a Tapu Lele later in the game. And yeah, he has the Float Stone in hand, he gets it out, and he's going to use Energy Drive here to just put 40 damage on that Zoroark. However, that 40 damage might not seem relevant now, but Crossing Cut GX with a Choice Band later on does enough damage to knock out a Zoroark.
But we see, as expected, the Zoroark evolving into a Zoroark GX, and we see a trade.
Tord's hand not looking too great here.
Not
He's
at all.
gotten a Sorola, but that's about it. We saw the Parallel City there. Could play that to try and slow down Miloslav a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah. I imagine we're going to see... Yeah. I imagine we were going to see the Wimpod go there. Obviously not able to use that Crossing Cut attack yet. Only first impression next turn. And what he really wants to do is focus on getting more draw and getting rid of that Parallel City and play down the Wimpod perhaps a little bit later on.
And we see an N being played. That's what I mentioned before. This N was in his hand probably already the last turn, and he was kind of unsure whether he should play it or not because he has a Zoroark in hand and did not want to shuffle it away.
Yeah, I think here Tord's gonna be hoping for some more bench Pokemon, the same that Miloslav did on his Cynthia. He hasn't had a chance to play Bridget yet, but hopefully drawing into 1 or 2 Zoroark here allows him to start setting up his board a little bit more.
Yeah.
And let's see what he does get. Right now as well, his Riotous Beating attack only doing 40 damage. So
it's not much.
He does need some more. He does get the Ultra
Balls.
And we see the Golisopod come down. So the first impression is available this turn. And the Zoroark. Exactly what we were saying, some bench Pokemon down there as well. Toward access to another Zoroark now next turn by getting that down this turn. And perhaps we'll just see the Rioters beating for 60 here.
Yeah. That is what happened. What is happening now? And it's Miloslav's turn again. He must be quite happy.
Yeah, Miloslav seems to be in the better position right now. He's got the stronger board state if he is able to get those Zoroarks down. Hopefully he's able to.
Looks like Tord transformed into Brick Tord.
Brick Tord.
Wow.
David, super good on the OBS there. Making it happen.
Yeah, I wonder how he changed his form. If it's something like Landers, for example, or if it's rather like Rotom. I'm not so sure about that. Well, we will need to ask him later.
We see a field blower there getting rid of Tord's Parallel City and putting down Miloslav's own Parallel City. Again, that's going to do the same sort of damage that it did to Miloslav in Game 1. He's going to stop Tord from getting down another few Pokemon. He's either got an option here of going for another Zoroark or the Tapu Koko in able to optimize that first impression. But it's going to be a tough choice for Tord. He's only got 5 cards in hand. He's going to try and make the most of them with just one trade as well.
Yeah, definitely, and let's see what's going to happen. We see an enhanced hammer
as well. That's really
what
big.
We were talking about earlier. Those enhanced hammers, they can really make a difference.
However, Miloslav misses all of his evolutions that turn as well with the supporter. That has allowed Tord to have a chance to start catching back up.
Will he get a supporter card this turn? He has a Bridget, but that's not what you want to see now.
Has a Bridget, however, now that his DCE's gone, I don't know if that's overly relevant. The Parallel City's down as well, only allowing him to grab one Pokemon off that Bridget.
Yeah, it's something you just trade away.
And he's traded it. Let's see if he gets anything here. He has the Guzma. You could first impression away one of those Zoroarks, giving Miloslav and him pretty much the same amount of chance of getting up as many trades as possible. He's got the Ultra Ball there as well, allowing him to get another Zoroark, get off another trade here, hopefully hit himself another supporter, extend his board state a little bit more.
Oh, looks like he's going for a Tapu Lele and a Acerola. Interesting play here. Well, but it makes sense.
It makes sense. Not only does it completely heal the Zoroark, but it also means that all of the work that Miloslav has put his resources into doing, because so far he's used a lot of draw supporters, he's put down a lot of Zoroarks, etc., but he's not actually done that much yet.
And that would also be a KO on the Tapu Lele if he goes for first impression then.
It's definitely good. I think that as well, being able to just evolve that Zoroark straight away again, using another trade and going for the first impression, really swipes it in Tord's direction. As much as his board state doesn't look as good as Miloslav's currently, it definitely will do after this turn.
It is a very good play, but however, Tord still hasn't got a draw support.
Let's see what happens here. It'll be interesting to see whether he opts to just play it safe and go for just the trade and then perhaps goes in with Riotous beaten. In fact, no, that would just be wrong. I doubt that Tord would do that. He hardly ever misplays.
Yeah.
He's probably just going to Acerola here, evolve, trade, and obviously first impression for that knockout.
And there comes the Golisopod. He is evolving one of his Zoroarks into a Zoroark. I wonder if he is going to bench the second Zoroark.
See, I think it might be better for Tord to actually try and find that Tapu Koko and bench that. Seems that his biggest chance of winning here is first impression at the minute with the Parallel City down. So perhaps better for him to find that Koko. No, he's gone for the Zoroark. Either way, though, it perhaps might have been better for the Tapu Koko just to allow him to continue using that first impression and take prizes on those Zoroarks, because Miloslav's finding it quite hard right now to find his Zoroarks.
Yeah, he does. They are not prized, we can see that, but yeah, he's just not finding them.
And he did hit the Ultra Ball, and he's proved this boat wrong. He's been able to do that. Getting another Zoroark out, giving him access to another trade this turn as well. However, he's not going to be able to knock out this Golisopod. Tord still has access. His max potion is prized, however, so he doesn't have access to that. There isn't a Wimpod on his bench, so you can't just Acerola it. I think a good amount of damage here could be quite threatening to Tord's Golisopod.
It could.
Especially with the Parallel City still down on the field.
So what we are seeing now is Miloslav. I think he is trading his Tapu Koko away. That does also mean that this game he will not be going for a Golisopod. He's playing a Soda to evolve one of his Zoroarks and the third Zoroark's GX on his side.
And I imagine with Tord's love for Zoroark, he's probably pretty jealous of Miloslav's board state right now, having quite a few of them in there. Plenty of access to trade here.
Yeah, now Miloslav is the trader.
And we see the Guzma come down. That's very nice there from Miloslav. Very nice indeed. Getting rid of that Zoroark, taking away that opportunity for Tord to get a second trade down there. Really closing in towards board state. And even if he is able to get another Zoroark on board next turn, he won't be able to use trade from it. So
yeah, now he needs to decide. Does he want to put the Golisopod active or not? And he decides not to, so he has access to this extra first impression damage.
Yeah, I think that first impression here is going to be his saving grace. Obviously, he needs to, I think, find a Wimpod to put on his bench. So again, we can have access to these sort of Acerola plays to slowly get him back into the game. By putting that Wimpod down, it means that if Miloslav does do damage to his Golisopod, just be Acerola back up and of course jump back in again for first impression.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It's all a case of now trying to stall it out as much as he can in order to try and get himself back in. But Miloslav pulling ahead as much as his board state doesn't look fantastic. 3 Zoroark actually means a lot.
It does. And, well, it's
Tord seems like he's got a big hand. However, by the looks of his face, he doesn't seem to have much in there. I can see 2 Guzma in there, a Grass Energy.
Yeah, he pulls up.
And yeah, he just uses first impression. He will draw the Tapu Lele off prizes though. Perhaps getting him a draw supporter that he needs a little bit more than the ones he had in hand. It's all a case now though. Does he go for the knockout here without attaching a Grass Energy?
I think he might have 2 puzzles in hand, as he is eyeing up with some cards in his discard pile that he could potentially bring back into his hand.
2 puzzle here would be pretty big. Being able to get that DCE on the Golisopod would be pretty nice as well for Tord. Having access to Armor Press, he does. Having access to Armor Press here, and of course getting back another Zoroark.
Yeah, he is getting back his Zoroark, and either double colorless energy or I haven't really seen it. Parallel City, and he decides to go for the energy. Tough decision here.
And the Zoroark comes down, and I think the DCE here will find its way onto Golisopod.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll see an Armor Press attack here.
Of course.
That's again minus 20 damage for that Golisopod next turn, meaning that even if Zoroark does fill up its whole bench, it means it's only going to be outputting 100 damage without a choice band. So that's not even a 2-shot on a Golisopod.
It's not. Miloslav is putting one of his Zoroark GX in the active position. Not that he had another Pokemon, but this one has a double colorless energy attached to it. Well, all of them have a double colorless energy attached to it, don't they?
I think 2 of them have a double colorless. The one to the left doesn't seem to.
Maybe it has a floatstone. It has a card attached to it at least. But I think you're right. It's rather a trainer card.
Oh, I think it's the Zoroark just slightly sticking out over the top there.
Yeah, we'll see.
Either way, there's a DC in the active. That's what matters, right? I think it's there and it's ready to go. He's going to Guzma again. I think going for that Zoroark again, of course. That's definitely the right play again here. No player really getting ahead at all here.
Yeah.
So to keep denying the other player their board state is definitely the right play.
Yeah, I think so too. And we see Tord checking Miloslav's discard pile. Yeah, important resources in this very matchup could be parallel cities, field blowers, enhanced hammers, but also all the healing cards, Acerola, Max Potion, and of course those puzzles of time. Yeah.
Yeah, the puzzles of time are really going to be the key here. As we saw there, it allowed Tord to get that DCE back, stuff like that. They also allow you to get key cards back like Acerolas, Guzmas, Max Potions, allowing you to keep doing that. Another key card in this matchup, Mallow comes down, allowing you to grab 2 cards, put them to the top of your deck, and then leave them there essentially. But obviously,
it's very interesting. Miloslav is not playing any Mallow, so that's another difference between those two.
Okay, so there we go. That's an advantage of that Mallow card there for Tord. Obviously, using Mallow, you are able to combine it quite nicely with trade, allowing you to pull those 2 cards straight off the top of your deck. And Tord's opted to go for 2 Zoroark here.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, it's definitely what he needs. He needs more Pokemon in play. He needs more trades, and yeah.
Yeah, and Miloslav's doing all the right things to continue to deny Tord those extra trades. Again, we see the Parallel City doing all the work here, denying Tord the bench space to be able to put down anything. He does have the second Wimpod in hand as well, which would be very nice with him to be able to Acerola loop and first impression, but Miloslav is stopping it from happening, using that Parallel City really effectively, and obviously knocking out their Zoroark, not allowing Tord to continue to draw and set up his board to a high-end state. Miloslav's doing all the right things here.
And we see the trade.
And the field blower finally comes down, gets rid of that Parallel City, and we can see Tord's board start to fill up.
And you can really see him laughing. Yeah, he was really happy to get that blower.
And we see the board start to fill up now. So even if Miloslav does find a way to take out one of those Zoroarks this turn, doing what he's already been doing, one of them will most probably be able to evolve into Zoroark next turn.
Yeah, and now Golisopod is in the active position as it was before.
And we see the armor press.
Again. This is, of course, the right thing to do here. You want to get less damage. The damage output of Zoroark's Righteous Beating right now is only at 40 damage now, and that's not very much.
No, it's not at all. I mean, Miloslav now looking slightly worse off now that Tord is able to start getting those Zoroarks in play next turn. He needs to do something to start pushing his board state a little bit further forward. We saw him discard quite a few Grass Energy over the last couple of turns. Wimpod in hand, Grass Energy in hand also. Will he opt to start going for those Golisopod plays?
Yeah.
Or is he just not sure on what the best play is for him to do? You know, that Golisopod at the front, it's got the DCE ready. It's ready to use Cross and Cut when he has an opportunity to. Tord's got rid of that Parallel City. He's got access to Zoroarks next turn. It just seems that Tord has everything he needs right now. Obviously, his board doesn't look too fruitful, but he's just got everything he needs in that Golisopod. As we said at the start, it's going to be the thing that changes the matchup. It's able to do the most damage, and it's able to put on the most pressure.
Yeah, it is. And it's interesting to see, again, Tord being behind at the very beginning, but he knows how to keep calm, and he knows how to play the late game and how to manage his resources very, very well. And yeah, that really what makes him such a good player, in my opinion.
Of course, yeah. So we do actually see the puzzles coming down again here, showing that enhanced hammer at the top of Miloslav's discard pile. I would be surprised to see if he didn't go for that. Probably the best thing possible here, taking away that armor press from his Golisopod. And then, yes, I can see the Parallel City I was about to mention, putting down that Parallel again. Just trying to seclude Tord's bench to 3 Pokemon is probably the best option he has.
Yeah, but Tord will be going to discard the Tapu Lele, So I'm not so sure if that Parallel City is super smart here, but he decides to go for it anyway. Yeah, Parallel City is the first card he chooses to take, and of course he may also choose a second card. I think he also must choose the second card, and it is the Enhanced Hammer, as you said.
Yeah, the Enhanced Hammer, the more important out of the two here, I think. Obviously, as you said, Lydia, the Tapu Lele is probably going to find its way into the discard pile once that Parallel City comes back down. However, still almost, or Miloslav could choose here to go for the -20 on the Golisopod here, so it's not able to actually take a knockout on his Zoroark. And he's just switched them around. He's started to put down his own Wimpod into play, and the Oranguru here, attachment of the Grass Energy onto the Wimpod, and he looks like he is going to start going. And he did, of course, as I said, go for that -20. Meaning that he got rid of that damaged Zoroark. Wow. Very nice play there from Miloslav, taking away all that work that towards Golisopod did, and starting to set up his board quite nicely here.
Yeah, and now Tord really needs to think things through again.
And we see Golisopod, I think Tord is going to try to put this active.
He could also be going for the Tapu Lele, as it has only retreat cost of 1. Or, yeah. But he decides to go for the Zoroark.
And Tord top decks the single puzzle. I don't think there's another one in his hand for him to have access to.
No, me neither.
The second Zoroark comes down. Now both players, same amount of trades a turn. No one necessarily with the upper hand on their draw power. However, Tord's board, sporting a Golisopod GX, while Miloslav only a Wimpod. I think Tord's option here could be to sort of go for a Guzma, taking out that Wimpod, knowing that that's probably Miloslav's biggest win con, being able to use Golisopod's stronger attack, should I say, than Zoroark. And by taking that away, Tord then knows that actually I'm doing more damage than you every turn, and you're really going to have to cycle through your resources and your Acer Rollers in order to keep yourself in this game after that.
Yeah, we see a Tapu Lele being played from Tord. He might be going for a Guzma to KO that Wimpod. That's what we already see him do earlier. Well, but he is eyeing up with the Cynthia.
He's eyeing up the Cynthia. Perhaps Tord doesn't have much else in his hand support-wise. We also see the Bridget up there, but I don't know why you would opt to go for Bridget here.
Maybe to trade it away directly.
Cynthia, though, being the option, allowing Tord to get a fresh hand of cards. Obviously, his hand is not very nice for him here. No, we can see a puzzle, a Wimpod, and a Grass Energy there. So nothing really for him to work with after he used that Guzma, if he did go for it. So Cynthia, definitely the right choice here. Shuffling his hand in, drawing 6 cards, and he's going to be hoping to be able to draw another DCE for his Zoroark here, so he's able to do some damage.
You know what, we have 14 minutes left, and in a very bad case, this could all again go into a sudden death.
I seriously don't think I can handle another sudden death. It's way too nervy. I don't like it. But we definitely could. Both players down to 3 prizes though, so at the minute, it's looking that way.
Oh boy, please not. Yeah, but let's not hope for it. We have 30 minutes to go, and let's just hope this game at least is going to finish.
Let's hope 3 prizes really can be taken in 13 minutes. Toward getting that DCE that he needs, he's going to be able to do 100 damage to Miloslav's Zoroark here in the active, if that's what he does opt to go and do. However, he could also attach the DCE to that Golisopod and hold it ready for that crossing cut GX or armor press. Quite a few options here for Tord. Tord now knows that Miloslav does have 2 enhanced hammer as well.
Oh, we see 1 enhanced hammer.
We see Tord's enhanced hammer coming down. very much doing the same effect that Miloslav's had, setting him back quite heavily, and the Golisopod comes in for the first impression off that float stone as well. 120 damage there with the enhanced hammer.
Yeah.
That's got to feel rough for Miloslav.
It does. Because Miloslav is now pretty much stuck with that Zoroark. But before that, Tord is attaching a regular grass energy to his
Oh,
Zoroark.
of course. The first impression as well. Doing 20 less there
Yeah.
due to the parallel city being down. Tord needing to find a choice band if he does want to knock out that Zoroark in one hit next turn.
Or a double colorless energy for crossing cut GX.
Absolutely. Moving that Golisopod back to the bench, and with that Zoroark with the float stone on it, that means the turn after he can move back in for another first impression.
Yeah. Or he would need Guzma, Field Blower. That would also be a potential... Oh no, not Guzma. Yeah, forget about what I was just saying.
Plenty of people in the chat hoping for sudden death by the looks of it.
Oh, please, no.
Our third sudden death of Top Cut. 60 minutes, just looking to be not enough time for a full series to be played out in Top Cut here. If we do go to
I think
sudden
the
death
thing
again.
is that people are just not used to have only 60 minutes in Top Cut. They are used to have a lot of more time. I think Top Cut matches are also a little bit harder because you play against very good players, and they piloted their deck all the way to the top cut, so they definitely know what they are doing, and decisions may be a bit harder.
We saw an absolutely huge turn there from Miloslav.
Yeah.
Getting that max potion, Tord doing his job there for him, getting rid of his DCE so he didn't have to discard it. Getting rid of that damage, attaching his DCE, getting a choice band, and ending Tord to just 3 cards. I know he has access to that trade ability, but still,
Yeah.
very good turn there from Miloslav.
It was
Changing his misfortune into fortune by obviously using the advantage of his DCE being discarded, using that mass potion on a completely clean Zoroark. Very nice there from Miloslav.
It was, and this is what Zoroark mirror match really is. It goes back and forth all the time.
Of course, those healing cards really being the key factor here on who's going to end up stealing this game. Towards seeing that DCE, obviously not as effective now that the Zoroark has been healed. It'll be interesting to see whether he even considers dropping it, due to the fact that Miloslav's high enhanced amp count. Tor doesn't know that the second one is in fact prized, however Miloslav by now does know that. So we might even see the second grass energy go onto Golisopod on the bench, onto Zoroark on the bench, just allowing him to be immune to that enhanced hammer there.
Yep, definitely. It could have also been because Tord has not really had any other options, but still, this is probably something he had in mind when attaching the energy.
Yeah, it's definitely a good call from Tord if he has done it for that reason. 2 grass energies on that Zoroark, making it completely immune
safe.
to all of it. Yeah, all of the enhanced hammer plays. Obviously, we have seen some Golisopod decks in the past play Plumeria as well. This one in particular does not, but Plumeria is sometime attack in there as well, so that would be a good play against that deck as well. Stopping the energy discarding on Zoroark, just using those grass, meaning that they'd still have one on there even after that happened. So very smart play there from Tord, obviously avoiding that enhanced hammer that really has given Miloslav a little bit of an edge at a few points in this game.
It did. That's also something we mentioned before the game, and it's always nice to see that your pre-game analysis turns out to be right.
Absolutely. Yeah, that the higher enhanced hammer count definitely proving better in the mirror for sure.
Oh, we see an Xerola.
And another one of
Back and
those.
forth all the time.
Another one of those big healing cards there. Tord really showing off the power of Acerola. Everything that Miloslav did on his last turn, the max potion, the DCE, the choice band, all of that combo put together, and it just means nothing now.
Nothing at all.
And Tord coming in and just doing the same amount of damage that Miloslav outputted onto him last turn. It's almost heartbreaking when you see that happen. You know, Miloslav Really well played last turn.
Yeah.
Really good combo. He drew all the pieces he needed, and Tord's pretty much just gone, no, sorry. It's just not enough to overcome me.
Yeah, and now it's Miloslav's turn again, and now it's in his hands. Does he has again the option to nullify Tord's turn?
I think with only 3 cards in deck left for Miloslav, his chances of being able to nullify it aren't that high. No Zoroark on the bench either. Not being able to just ace roller that Zoroark with no punishment. He'll set himself back quite far by doing that anyway. He does have a grass energy in hand to be able to use resource management from Oranguru there.
Oh yeah, he could.
But apart from that, he's got to really hope that he draws into something nice here. He shakes his head. He must know that that last card there is something quite important. Or hasn't realised that his other puzzle is prized. We see one in his hand.
Yeah.
Perhaps not realising that the second one is in his prizes. Hoping to draw into that. But of course not going to. He does, however, opt to go for the ace roller, depending on not whether he lets go of it here. He does opt to go for it. So obviously he's considered his outs. He's considered the fact that perhaps, yes, I'm going to be able to use one less trade. However, I've got 1 card left in deck, so I probably don't want to trade anyway. So opting to pick it up there, taking back his board state. However, he's got to be careful here.
He's really, look at his hands, grabbing his hair. This is really tough and intense.
I think if he makes the wrong play here with just 1 card in deck, he's really got to think about it carefully. If he makes the wrong play, it only takes 1 more turn and he just loses due to that.
That's very true.
Can't see an N in his hand either, so he has really got 2 turns to close this game out, and I can't see it happening right now.
He has 1 turn, right? He traded, and now there's 1 card left in his deck. And he decided to attach the energy. No. He really needs to start using resource management, otherwise he's going to deck out.
And I think we'll see the armor press here. Yeah, the armor press coming down. Oh no, probably the first impression. It moved into the active. He wants to do as much damage as possible here. Oh no, it was the armor press actually. 130 damage being put down there.
Yeah.
Obviously taking 20 less on his next turn as
GX
well.
counter not flipped.
And obviously, yeah, no GX counter flipped, and Golisopod not returning to the bench there. It looks pretty dire for Miloslav here. Even with that resource management, Oranguru in his field, he's not been able to manage his resources. All the way down to 1 card left in deck, if we're able to see that properly.
I would really like to take a look at this discard piles and just count the ends, but yeah, I can't.
The thing for Miloslav here as well that could actually lose in the game is if he still hasn't realised that that puzzle is prized, he could think it's his last card and go for that trade and hope that he'll be able to get the N out of his discard pile, but ultimately it won't be there.
That would be a very huge, well, I don't want to say misplay, but it would be kind of a mistake.
Well, it definitely would be a misplay. Obviously, it's really important. You and David were saying in one of your previous games, perhaps you don't have enough time in these games to check all of your prizes, but definitely for the important stuff. And Puzzler Time in this matchup, definitely one of those important cards that you want to be looking for. So it would really surprise me if Miloslav did miss that and doesn't actually know that it's prized.
It also looks like he has no options in his hand to check for the puzzle.
Exactly.
Otherwise, he would have just played, I don't know, in he can't play Nest Ball, but no, he can't.
Even something as an Ultra Ball though, you know, anything, Bridget, but Tord sporting his double puzzle there. Miloslav probably jealous that he doesn't have access to his own.
He might be going for an enhanced timer again. Now putting the double colors energy away would be very unfair.
Oh, Tord going for probably the resource management Guzma play here.
Oh, yes.
Knowing that Miloslav can't get any cards back in his deck once that resource management Oranguru is gone. But not this turn. Tord holds off on it right now. He's just going to come in and use that Riot SPE in attack for potentially 130, potentially 150. 150 it is.
Yeah.
But definitely getting rid of that resource management seems like another idea that he could
it's
go
only
for,
130 because of Parallel City.
Oh, because of Parallel City.
Yeah, 130
Oh
damage.
no, Parallel City would only reduce it for
Oh.
grass types, wouldn't it?
Oh,
Grass,
yeah, true. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's either.
Oh.
Oh, Armor
he-
Press, of course.
Did he?
Yes, he Armor Press
Oh,
last turn, didn't he? Yeah, so Armor Press, taking it down to 130. Still an ample amount of damage there from Zoroark, though. Still able to two-shot that Golisopod. And he draws his last card. Whether or not he's just realised that it's not actually his puzzle.
And yeah, maybe he's now checking the amount of puzzles of time in his discard pile. Maybe he's unsure if he miscalculated something, but yeah.
And the Acerola, and I think that's game. He's not able to.
Yeah, he's going to use resource management now. I mean, otherwise that is game.
Unfortunately, though, I just think, you know, wasting a turn using resource management at this late point.
It's his only option to survive.
Oh, obviously the only option to survive, but I just mean that, you know, it's going to set him even further behind here. He's going to have to resource management, probably grabbing those puzzler times, probably opting to then go for an N.
Yeah.
None of those cards really doing anything to actually hurt Tord. Just keep himself in this game. I think he's really backed into a corner here. Not many options. He's almost being forced to play this resource management. And
Yeah, he's allowed to put them in any order. That was I was not so sure about. Usually if you use it in the early game, it does not make any difference because you use N or Cynthia or any other deck searching card that makes you shuffle your deck. But in this very case, it of course makes a big difference because he could draw all 3 cards in his turn.
Of course. I think it's quite important that Miloslav does opt to go for N if it does result in him getting to, whether he grabs it off of his resource management now or opts to get it with the puzzle. But he needs more cards in his deck.
Puzzle and Guzma.
Goes for the Guzma. Perhaps taking out that Zoroark.
And
lowering Tord, lowering Tord's trade down to just 1 Zoroark on the field. He's been very effective of getting rid of those Zoroarks all game so far.
Look at the time!
There's 25 seconds left.
If he manages to KO a Zoroark, you know what that means.
It means that we do go to sudden death once
Not
again.
Oh. But let's see what's going to happen. Oh, he's not going for Guzma, he's going for a field blower. And now he needs to decide in what order.
He probably wants to be going to top deck the field blower and then trade into double puzzle, right? Like,
yeah, but it does not really matter.
He draws all 3 either way, right? So
yeah.
It doesn't really matter at all. But
now it's time.
And yeah, Tord. Oh, turn 0 actually starting on Miloslav. He's only got 1 more turn to close out this game. Which means
Tord is now very familiar with the timeout rule.
Yeah, I think so. I think right now we could have it here to where Miloslav can't actually win the game. The fact that that ended on his turn.
Yeah, I mean, if Tord manages to get a KO, this also would mean that Tord would win this last round. For those of you who have not watched our top 8 matches, if in the top cut, more than 50% of the prices of either player in the second match or the third match have been taken, it counts as a win for the player with less prize cards. So right now both players have taken 3 of their prize cards. Now Tord has taken over 50% of his prizes, and that would mean he would win the game. And
but
yeah,
Tord wins
he
the
won
game
the
anyway.
game.
Really great there from Tord, actually using N to put Miloslav's hand back in his deck, meaning that he didn't have access straight away to those puzzles and field blower that he put back in. Miloslav knew, I'm probably not going to be able to get those. I don't really have a win con next turn. Tord was miles ahead there. Really smart play. Yeah, Miloslav just had no other options there. Actually using an N in reverse. Normally you want to use it to lower your opponent's hand side, but actually giving Miloslav the cards back in his deck, allowing him not to deck out, but essentially stopping him from getting those puzzle at times.
Yeah.
Really smart there from Tord.
Really smart.
Things that you just don't think about, but he's ahead of us all.
He is such a genius player, and that's why he made it into the finals of this special championships.
Once again, we see Tord Reklev rising right to the top. Obviously, we'll bring him over again for another interview just to see how that game goes and get inside the head of a genius on how he plays the Zoroark matchup. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll have Tord here very soon for you all.
See you.
See you in a minute.